Hi everyone, it's Mary Street, and in this video I'm going to take the foundation that I just spoke about in the first video a step further and help you define how you're going to move into step into that foundation with a strategic process. So I'm going to be using what is called a SMART goal strategy. We use this in coaching, and SMART is an acronym for S is specific, M is measurable, A is achievable, R is realistic, and T is time limited. So I'm going to give you my example of how I learned enough to be able to become a professional reader in 1 year's time. So first of all, I set a measure of time. My goal was to become a professional reader at the end of 1 year. So specifically, how did I do that? Specifically, every day, at the same time, every day when my son napped, I would get out my books and I would pick a couple of exercises, and I would do partially reading of how this all worked, and then what I would do was I would take an exercise and I would work on it. So I didn't have anybody to practice on, so basically I was just making up fictitious people. I would literally go to Dear Abby, you know, the write-ups Dear Abby, and I would pretend like I was reading for those people in Dear Abby. And honestly, it gave me a real great foundation, because I didn't have anybody to read for, and very honestly, the reason why was because I didn't tell my husband that I was reading for anybody. I primarily started reading for strangers. Again, I did not have anybody to read for, with the exception of one friend. She was the only one that I knew that knew that I was developing my psychic ability. So I would read for her pretty consistently. But you know, to be very honest, when you read for the same person over and over and over again, you get to know them too well, and honestly, they run out of things to work on. So again, I can't stress highly enough, you're going to have to take the leap to read for strangers. The next thing is measurable. So how do you know you completed this goal? Well, if you have had a time frame of a year and you're taking tangible steps and you're keeping a psychic journal, which I mentioned in the last video, you will know as you write down your information in your journal through dedicated practice what things are working for you and what things are not. The things that's not working for you, I would absolutely, push those aside. And I always suggest to new psychics in the business to put your framework on the two highest and best senses that come to you. So for me, it was clairaudience, and then I developed clairvoyance as a backup tool for reading. So I just simply focused on those two clairs, okay? The next thing is achievable. So I knew it was achievable if I took small steps. What was not going to work for me was if I started doing so much work and kind of thinking, I don't need to deep dive into it, I don't need to have any structure. As I started to take baby steps and start to develop, trust through doing the readings for strangers, I learned that I was capable of doing it, but it did not come overnight. So the achievable will come through time, but if you keep a psychic journal, that will help you, again, measure what is working best for you. And as you see that, it will start to give you confidence, and as you gain confidence, you will see what you're capable of doing, okay? So realistic. So here's the value of being realistic. I knew that I was starting out with just a few books. Again, I did not know anybody in this field. I didn't have a teacher. So for me, being realistic within the parameters that I was working in meant that I was going to just have to really take this really seriously and come to it from a sense of learning maybe a college course. So that's how primarily I did it. And so if you are realistic about, you know, your goals. You're not setting the bar so high that you can't achieve it. So for instance, if I set a time frame of 3 months and I'm going to be out there, I'm a psychic reader, very honestly, that would have been really impossible, because we don't know with what time. Sometimes emergencies come up and, you know, you just can't study that day, but you can do your best to do that. But oftentimes, you know, you have to be able to give it a realistic you know, goal, a time frame, in order for you to not feel pressured to do that. The minute you feel pressured to do this, I'm going to tell you, you're going to shut your psychic senses off. So don't do that to yourself, okay? And then time limited. With being realistic, I knew that a year's time, with the amount of time I had to practice, would work for me. Here's also another tip. I was not steadfast to that goal. I mean, I planned a year, but if something were to happen, I was able to be flexible in my energy. So I was not going to beat myself up if after a year I was not able to meet my goal. As it turned out, I was able actually to meet my goal in a lot less time. And I think part of the reason why that happened for me was because I read for strangers from the very beginning. I did not have that comfort zone where I could read for family. And again, I only had one friend I was reading for. So basically, when I ran out of readings for her, I said, you know, can you help me? I don't know who else to ask. And she said, you know what? I'll send you all my clients. So she sent me all her clients, and I just started giving them free readings. And then they started sending their friends for free readings. And that's how it went for me. Honestly, maybe being a little naive worked best for me, because I didn't know the process. I didn't know you shouldn't be reading for strangers, or I didn't have a resistance to reading for strangers. So I believe that that took me a long way. So I hope that this was helpful. And in summary, what I would like to say is, again, set a concrete, you know, realistic goal for yourself using the S.M.A.R.T goal process. And I think that this strategy will help you not only in your developmental, you know, your developmental stage, but also set you up for a bigger parameter when you start to move into your own business, because you can take this strategy and move it into the business sense of it. Because once you start your own business, you know, you've got to keep appointment books, you've got to do the social media, you've got to stay on top and keep track of your clients and all of that. So my firm belief is you can take this strategy and apply it to any area in your life. So I hope, again, this video was helpful. If you have any comments, if you have any questions, if you have anything that you would like help on, I'm here for you. So please leave me a comment in the comment box below, and many blessings to you.